It's no surprise that people who produce media also are avid consumers, and the genre of horror is the timely topic of this next piece. Local scene cinephiles share their picks for top tier in terror.
It's the time of pumpkin spice, apple picking, and leaves changing color. This is October. And in between jack-o'-lanterns or Halloween parties, there's one constant that we all partake in: watching scary movies. We've asked our PAC TV staff here to discuss horror movies that have made an impact on them. Whether it be a cursed videotape, a monster hunter, or an urban legend, our staff came up with some spooky selections that will keep you up at night. Each day for 13 days, we'll be releasing a video with our staff discussing a horror movie or two that made an impact on them. Whether it's beyond our world, whether it's things that go bump in the night or an ancient curse, horror is the one genre that has never failed to entertain us, make us think, and best of all, scare us. Welcome to the 13 Days of Halloween.
It's iconic. Like, it really is. It's part of our consciousness. I mean, the "here's Johnny" line as he's breaking through the door. It really is. And it's also just beautifully made. It's stunning. I mean, the location itself, the hotel is a character in itself. It's beautiful. It's just cinematically just gorgeous.
And it's isolation, of course, that plays a huge theme.
Of course.
And I think that might be the only horror film that Jack Nicholson had actually participated in, maybe other than The Witches of Eastwick.
I mean, granted, he's always been a little creepy himself. Like, there's something just off-putting about Jack Nicholson, and we've all felt it. And I think this really brought out the whole-fledged creepiness of him.
And just tears into that role like there's no tomorrow. And it's Stanley Kubrick.
Oh, genius.
Which, from what I understand, The Shining, the book, is different from The Shining, the movie.
Completely different.
Is it?
It's completely different. The whole feel is different. I honestly it's very rare that I say this, but I liked the movie better than the book.
I think a lot of people did.
Yeah.
Well, I'm told that the TV version is more aligned with what the book was supposed to tell as a story versus the film.
I couldn't get over the fact that it was the guy from Wings, so that was,
and a mallet instead of an axe.
Yes, exactly. What was the point? Yeah.
Okay.
When did you see both films? And why did you want to talk about it?
I'm going to age myself here. I came from the VHS generation.
Yeah, I did too.
All right, so you have an appreciation when into a video store, you look at the artwork for hours in the aisle. Horror was a forbidden thing for me. I wasn't allowed to watch it. So of course, what happens when a kid is forbidden from doing something, they're gonna want it even more. So I would scan the backs of these VHS covers for hours, just looking at the gruesome photos. And there was something perverse about it. And Creepshow always stood out to me.
Okay.
And then one day I ended up renting it on VHS and had a sleepover at my friend's house, and it's like my mind was just ripped apart. I couldn't believe what I saw.
Yeah.
It was like Twilight Zone the movie. It was this anthology story where each story is compact and succinct enough that it's entertaining, doesn't slow down, and moves on to the next story.
Yes.
Plus, there's a wicked sense of imagination because
and humor.
It's and it's inspired by DC Comics, so there are these animated panels.
Yes.
Plus, you get to see Stephen King act.
Yes.
Which is rare.
Did a good job.
He did.
Genuinely did a good job. And his son is a little boy in the beginning and the end.
Yep.
Yes, who's now a writer. He wrote The Black Phone with Ethan Hawke.
So just bear in mind, Grindhouse is a 3-hour film, 2 movies with fake trailers, which you'd have to have a lot of patience to see that.
Yes.
Do you remember the first time you watched that films?
Yeah, it was in the theater here in Kingston. Actually, you and I and Dan went out and saw it. The whole experience was part of what made it my favorite horror movie. On top of that, it was just jam-packed with so much, like, over-the-top horror. You could tell the people who put the time to make the movie just like loved what they did and just had so much fun with what they did, you know.
And here we were seeing a movie that was released or as a nod to a generation before us.
Oh yes.
We grew up in the age of the multiplex. We didn't know what that was like to go to a drive-in like that or to see a cheap movie on an afternoon for like $1.
Yeah.
And that's amazing that we were able to experience that because that's what Tarantino and Rodriguez grew up on.
It's always interesting to me to see, like, perhaps maybe what the director's fears are, right? Because I think what a director adds to the film or what the writer adds to the film is maybe their internal fears.
Yes.
So it's always interesting to me to see that and you know how they relate that to the world. So
what would you guess the internal fear is?
I mean, I think there's multiple in this
Yeah.
movie. You know, I think it's monsters. I think it's dogs. But most importantly, I think it's like self-identity. I think
Okay.
in this film, like figuring out what's real and like what's
Yeah.
not real was a huge part of this movie.
Yeah.
For you know, Sam Neill's character. So.
Yeah, and they say this in the beginning, so I can say it, which
Yep.
is someone says something about
Oh yes.
sanity and insanity. They flip.
Yes.
They can
exactly.
flip, and then the sane becomes insane because they're in the minority.
Yep. So maybe the insane are actually the sane,
Yeah.
at least in this reality.
Fiends.
Yes.
Woodlands Dark and Days Bewitched: A History of Folk Horror is like a 3.5-hour documentary about folk horror as a subgenre, directed by Micaela Janice. And basically, it's a tour of the subgenre from its origins. It creates a thesis about what it is, how to define it, and it takes you on a tour of different parts of the world and how they differ or how similar they are, and what culturally and socially they mean.
And we've all seen a fair amount of folk horror, especially in like the 60s and 70s.
Yes, and it's coming back for good reason.
Really?
Yes, so it's coming back because in terms of whenever we're not feeling good about the future, we're in turbulent times such as the 70s and the 60s,
Yeah.
we look to the past. So folk horror always asks, is the past actually as rosy as we think, remember it as? And the question is no.
It's been romanticized.
It's been romanticized, and folk horror is a reaction to that.
Well, The Wicker Man, they're going back to an older time,
Yes.
not really understanding that
Yeah.
this is very sinister.
They had done this marketing campaign that was largely online, where they set up a website that was, it was basically trying to get to the bottom of what had happened to these missing filmmakers that had gone missing out in the woods. And they did all these fake police reports, and they would release stuff like, oh, we found the guy's car in this ditch near the woods. What could be happening? So it was meta in a way that most movies at the time had not been. It was somewhat unique for the time, and having seen it in the theaters back then, people maybe there was kind of a misconception about it that audiences at the time thought that it was real. And nobody thought that it was actually, that there was like a real Blair Witch or anything. But there was, going into it, you weren't 100% certain. Can I have some? I really want some of that.
I think that's a health code violation.
That's, you're scared of a health code violation? I mean, that's not very in the spirit of the holiday. But
I'm more of a Christmas gal.
So yeah, I mean, for that time period and what Tobe Hooper kind of did with the budget of that film was so low, they had to make a lot of low budget decisions. And one of the things that ended up happening was that they had this knife that was supposed to like draw out blood and like push blood out of the tip, but it wasn't working, probably because of the insane conditions that they were working in the heat of Texas. And they essentially tried cutting the finger and it wouldn't push out the blood, so what they ended up doing is they got a real knife and they actually cut their finger on screen. Real blood, real finger cut. And for me, that's a little too extreme, that's a little too intense. I probably wouldn't be able to do that if I ever tried making a film like that, but like, that's some serious dedication to the craft for real. Like.
Yeah. I hope they had a first aid box.
I hope so too. I hope so too. And there's a lot of those situations that kind of happen on screen, like without saying who, there's a character that ends up having their face on the pavement.
Nice.
And it's in Texas, so the pavement is
Hot.
insanely hot, like their skin almost melting off.
Okay.
So it's just a lot of low budget, like crazy, neat tricks that they kind of had to, or things that they had to go through to kind of get the film off the ground in the first place.
And it's this big play on, good versus evil, because there's a certain point in the movie where he's trying to help Frankenstein's monster survive and live. And he sees that he's not an evil person. He's not bad. And that is one of the biggest lines that he says of, I have to make sure that, who I'm killing are actually evil. And he's not evil.
He's just a misunderstood lost
He's
soul.
misunderstood. And, Van Helsing is misunderstood too, because, he was somebody that quote unquote murders people, because to the eyes of the public, monsters don't exist. They only see what their true form was after they've died. So they always just assume Van Helsing's a murderer. He's not saving them, he's just killing people. So it's this big back and forth of, you know, what is good and what is bad.
What's your favorite scene in Nightmare?
I guess that's kind of the ending, to be honest with you. Nancy comes out to the car, and the car is like, you know, a red car, thinks that she's defeated Freddy Krueger. She opens it, gets in with all her friends and everything, and then the soft top comes up, and it's like the same colors of the sweater and everything, and it just fits. I think it ties in so well. I thought that was a great way to end the movie, because it's like you can't escape the dream and you can't escape the reality, and then I think there's like an element of just kind of like a psychological like element to it that I like, where it's like just battling that mental, like you can't really escape it, but then there's like you want to see a way of getting out of it, and that's kind of what I like about both those films.
Yeah, did you ever see, there's a whole YouTube channel about like ways to outsmart horror films, like other ways of doing it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I think you'd like it. I'll let you know.
That'd be sweet.
Yeah. Okay, so that about wraps it up. Max, thank you for coming in from down the hallway once again.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, if you want me to call you a cab,
okay.
I can do that.
That'd be perfect. An Uber or something. Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed watching these videos as we had just as much fun making them. With Halloween right around the corner, there's plenty to watch out for. So next time, keep your porch lights on, your doors locked, and your television sets preferably off when you're asleep. Just not near any plants. Happy Halloween.
If you enjoyed this video by The Local Scene, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching.